The Senate Judiciary Committee chamber erupted into one of the most contentious exchanges we've seen this year. Senator Dick Durbin fired pointed questions about National Guard deployments, while Attorney General Pam Bondi responded with personal attacks that left seasoned political observers stunned. What started as routine oversight questioning quickly devolved into a heated confrontation that reveals the deep political divisions plaguing Washington. The gloves came off when Durbin pressed for transparency on military deployments to American cities, and Bondi's response was anything but diplomatic. This wasn't just another Senate hearing. This was political theater at its most raw and unfiltered. Today's Senate Judiciary Committee hearing was supposed to focus on routine oversight of the Department of Justice, but it quickly became a battleground over executive power and transparency. Senator Dick Durbin, the ranking member from Illinois, came prepared with specific questions about the administration's decision to deploy National Guard troops to cities across America without consulting state governors. The tension in the room was palpable as Durbin sought answers about the legal rationale behind these deployments, particularly the controversial decision to send Texas National Guard units to Illinois. Attorney General Pam Bondi, facing her first major congressional grilling since taking office, adopted a defensive posture that would define the entire exchange. The fireworks began when Durbin asked a seemingly straightforward question. Were you consulted by the White House before they deployed National Guard troops to cities in the United States? Bondi's response was immediate and uncompromising. I am not going to discuss any internal conversations with the White House. This stonewalling strategy backfired spectacularly as Durbin pressed harder, asking why the American people shouldn't know the rationale behind military deployments in their own states. The exchange revealed a fundamental disagreement about transparency versus executive privilege, with Bondi refusing to acknowledge even basic consultation processes. Durbin's frustration was evident as he pointed out that Illinois residents deserve to understand why federal troops are being deployed to their state without their governor's request. Rather than addressing the substance of Durbin's questions, Attorney General Bondi chose to launch personal attacks that shocked veteran Senate observers. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump, she declared, completely abandoning the usual decorum expected in congressional testimony. Her attack continued with pointed criticism about Chicago's crime statistics, claiming the city has a murder rate 5 times higher than New York's, 571 homicides last year. This personal approach represented a dramatic departure from traditional attorney general testimony, where officials typically maintain professional composure even under intense questioning. Bondi's strategy seemed designed to deflect from the core constitutional questions about federal troop deployments by turning the spotlight on Durbin's home city. Senator Durbin's response demonstrated the institutional knowledge of someone who has served on the Senate Judiciary Committee for over 2 decades. I've been on this committee for more than 20 years. That's the kind of testimony you expect from this administration, he said, highlighting how unusual Bondi's confrontational approach was compared to previous attorney generals. Durbin emphasized that asking about legal rationales for federal actions isn't a personal attack. It's congressional oversight at its most basic level. His measured response contrasted sharply with Bondi's heated rhetoric, underscoring the different approaches to governance represented in this exchange. The senator made clear that respectful questioning about government actions should not be grounds for personal attacks from cabinet officials. The hearing took another dramatic turn when Durbin raised questions about a $400 million luxury jet allegedly gifted to President Trump by the royal family of Qatar. This line of questioning became particularly pointed given Bondi's previous work representing Qatar on anti-human trafficking efforts. Durbin argued that accepting such a gift clearly violates constitutional provisions requiring congressional approval for any officer of the United States to accept gifts from foreign states. The emoluments clause questions struck at the heart of constitutional governance, with Durbin seeking the legal rationale used to justify accepting what he called, quote, an unprecedented gift from your former legal client. Bondi's evasive responses on this constitutional issue further escalated tensions in an already heated exchange. The clash over the Qatar jet revealed deeper philosophical differences about government transparency. When Durbin pressed for disclosure of the legal advice given to justify accepting the gift, Bondi cited attorney-client privilege and the confidentiality of Office of Legal Counsel advice. The confidentiality applies to their input as well, she insisted, refusing to provide any documentation or rationale for the decision. Durbin's frustration was evident as he noted that he had sent a letter 5 months earlier requesting this information with no response. This exchange highlighted the ongoing tension between congressional oversight responsibilities and executive branch claims of privilege, a constitutional dynamic that has become increasingly contentious in recent years. The hearing also revealed significant disagreements over federal law enforcement funding. Durbin accused the administration of cutting federal grant programs to law enforcement in Illinois and across the nation, arguing that reducing these programs while simultaneously deploying National Guard troops represents misguided priorities. He specifically cited the HIDA grants, noting they were being cut from $300 million to $196 million in the proposed budget. Bondi pushed back, claiming she had cut only 7% of grants and offering to work with Durbin to restore any specific grants that help law enforcement. This funding dispute underscored broader disagreements about federal versus state approaches to public safety, with Durbin advocating for cooperative federalism while the administration pursued more unilateral approaches. Perhaps the most explosive moment came when Durbin questioned Bondi about her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. He accused her of making public claims about having the Epstein client list sitting on my desk right now for review before producing only already public information at a White House media event. Durbin also referenced whistleblower allegations that Bondi pushed the FBI to review approximately 100,000 Epstein-related records on an arbitrarily short deadline, with specific instructions to flag any documents mentioning President Trump. Bondi's defensive response included her own accusations, claiming Durbin had refused Republican requests to release the Epstein flight logs in 2023 and 2024, and suggesting he had received campaign donations from Reid Hoffman, whom she described as a huge Epstein friend. The hearing became even more chaotic when Senator Marsha Blackburn intervened to dispute Durbin's account of the Epstein flight logs controversy. Blackburn insisted that she had repeatedly requested the logs in writing and that Durbin had shut down the committee because you didn't want that. This interruption highlighted the deep partisan divisions over the Epstein investigations, with Republicans claiming Democrats had obstructed their efforts to obtain flight logs and related documents. The back and forth between Durbin and Blackburn, with Bondi watching, demonstrated how the Epstein case continues to be a political flashpoint that transcends typical oversight questioning. What this hearing ultimately revealed was a fundamental breakdown in the traditional relationship between Congress and the executive branch. Senator Durbin's questions about National Guard deployments, foreign gifts, and case handling represent basic congressional oversight responsibilities that have been respected across party lines for decades. Attorney General Bondi's refusal to engage substantively with these questions, combined with her strategy of personal attacks and deflection, represents a new low in executive branch accountability. The exchanges showed how constitutional norms around separation of powers and checks and balances are being tested in unprecedented ways, with potential long-term consequences for American governance. The confrontational nature of this hearing sends a clear message about the current state of Washington politics. Traditional norms of respectful disagreement between branches of government have given way to partisan warfare that prioritizes political point scoring over substantive policy discussion. Bondi's approach may energize the administration's base, but it also sets a precedent that could damage the institutional relationships necessary for effective governance. Durbin's measured but persistent questioning represents the traditional Senate role, but his obvious frustration suggests that normal oversight mechanisms may be breaking down under the pressure of extreme partisanship. The spectacle of a cabinet official launching personal attacks on a senior senator during sworn testimony represents a new chapter in the erosion of governmental decorum. This breakdown has serious implications beyond political theater. When oversight mechanisms fail, accountability suffers, and public trust in institutions erodes. The American people deserve answers to basic questions about how their government operates. Yet this hearing demonstrated how political polarization can prevent even the most fundamental transparency. Future administrations and Congresses will have to grapple with whether these confrontational tactics become the new normal or whether institutional guardrails can be restored. The clips from this hearing quickly went viral on social media, with both sides claiming victory in the exchange. Conservative commentators praised Bondi for fighting back against what they characterized as Democratic grandstanding, while liberal observers expressed alarm at the breakdown of traditional oversight norms. The personal nature of the attacks generated particular controversy, with many questioning whether a cabinet official should engage in such confrontational rhetoric during congressional testimony. Legal experts across the political spectrum expressed concern about the implications for executive branch accountability, regardless of their views on the specific policy questions at stake. The hearing became a Rorschach test for American politics, with viewers' reactions largely determined by their pre-existing political loyalties rather than objective assessment of the constitutional issues involved. Beyond the immediate political fireworks, this hearing may have lasting damage to crucial institutional relationships. The Attorney General's role requires maintaining credibility with both Congress and the American people, regardless of party affiliation. Bondi's approach risked undermining that credibility by appearing to prioritize political loyalty over institutional responsibility. Senator Durbin's experience and measured responses highlighted the stark contrast between traditional senatorial behavior and the new confrontational approach from the executive branch. The failure to address basic questions about legal rationales for government actions suggests a troubling precedent where cabinet officials can simply refuse to engage with legitimate oversight questions. This institutional breakdown could have consequences far beyond this single hearing, potentially emboldening future officials to adopt similar stonewalling tactics. Despite the heated exchanges and personal attacks, the fundamental constitutional questions raised by Senator Durbin remain unanswered. The legal basis for deploying National Guard troops to states without gubernatorial consent deserves serious examination, regardless of one's views on the policy merits. The Emoluments Clause questions about foreign gifts require constitutional analysis, not political deflection. The handling of sensitive investigative materials like the Epstein files demands transparency and accountability from law enforcement agencies. These aren't partisan issues. They're fundamental questions about how our democracy functions and whether constitutional constraints on government power remain meaningful. The Attorney General's refusal to engage substantively with these questions leaves Americans without answers to legitimate concerns about the scope and limits of executive authority. This Senate hearing will be remembered not for any policy revelations or meaningful oversight, but for what it revealed about the current state of American democratic institutions. The breakdown of normal procedures, the personal attacks replacing substantive answers, and the refusal to acknowledge basic oversight responsibilities paint a troubling picture of our political system. When cabinet officials can avoid accountability through confrontation and deflection, when senators must fight just to get basic information about government operations, and when constitutional questions become partisan talking points rather than serious legal discussions, democracy itself suffers. The American people deserve better from their elected and appointed officials. They deserve transparency, accountability, and respect for the institutional frameworks that have sustained our republic for over 2 centuries. Whether future hearings return to traditional norms or continue down this path of confrontation will determine much about the health of American democracy in the years to come.